Hello all, welcome to the third instalment of the Lorehammer for the free city of Moltenheart, my free city. So we'll get straight into it. At the end of the last Lorehammer, the Warden King had just arrived back at the ruins of Karakzan Clad, but there was already a Darkling Coven set up within the ruins. So, a not so warm welcome. The molten metal that had subsided from the upper and middle halls over the ages had left gleaming metallic walls and floors in their wake. Under the watchful gaze of the Triple Kings, the titanic effigies of the first three kings of the mountain, Warden King Scully Cavenhart entered the iron-bound halls of his ancestors. After securing a defensible position in the ruins of the throne room, the Duarden spent several days exploring the iron-shod upper levels of the city as Spirit Walker searched for a way down to the heart of the mountain and the power he believed slumbered there. Their arrival had, of course, not gone unnoticed. Order Serpentis outriders had shadowed the dispossessed column for some time, and thus Shaila Darkspite was already aware of the Duarden long before they entered the hold. As allies of Azerheim, the Darkling Sorceress was loath to attack the interlopers outright, and thus decided it was prudent to send an emissary to request the dispossessed depart her mountain before bloodshed became a necessity. On the fourth night after their arrival, an elven warrior, avoiding the Duarden guards with relative ease, entered the dispossessed's makeshift camp. The Darkling elf ignored the threats of the Warden King and Cavenhart's Bolongard bodyguard, and strode purposely towards the Duarden lord. On a broken, iron-covered throne, Scully Cavenhart watched the messenger's approach with disdain. The elf threw a scroll of human skin at the Warden King's feet and stood defiantly before the Duarden throng. From behind the throne, Carathian Spirit Walker stepped to retrieve the fallen document. Scully's gaze did not move from the Darkling as the Lord Ordinator read the spidery script. Dear interloper, you have trespassed into the realm of the frozen hope. In the interest of old alliances, I generously grant you one day to return from whence you came, or die upon our blades. High Sorceress Shaila Darkspite. Scully's cheeks flushed crimson as the Duarden Lord rose menacingly from the shattered throne. Despite Spirit Walker cautioning patience, the Warden King cast the Darkling emissary from the chamber and ordered his men to prepare to fight for their home and their ancestors. As much as the dispossessed Duarden were accomplished tunnel fighters, the Darklings had been resident in the ruined hold for a great many years and had thus become adept at utilising the terrain to their own advantage. The initial skirmishes between the two forces were relatively minor, although both sides did suffer casualties. Lord Ordinator Spirit Walker attempted tirelessly to broker a peace between the two peoples, acutely aware as he was of the potential target a fractured and thus weakened hold represented to any who may wish to lay claim to the power that slumbered beneath it. Neither Warden King nor Darkling Sorceress, however, were prepared or interested in seeing reason, and, in truth, both peoples did have a legitimate claim to the mountain stronghold. The arrogance of the elves and the stubbornness of the Duarden appeared to be an insurmountable obstacle. Outright war between the two peoples appeared inevitable. The enemy of my enemy. The Skaven assault happened quickly and completely without warning. A millennia is nothing to a greater demon, and the Vermin Lord that had been cast out by Warden King Cavenhart's ancestors had bided its time, patiently waiting for its chance to once more claim what lay beyond the doors of Grungni. The mind of a Vermin Lord is labyrinthine, and the demon had fled the mountain in defeat ages past. It had made sure that not all the tunnels and concealed bolt holes had been flooded with the molten metal of the iron of the Forged Soul River. From these bolt holes and passages the Ratmen now surged. Completely absorbed with their own squabble, both the elves and the Duarden were ill prepared for this new assault. Foes became fast allies as Elf and Duarden turned upon a common enemy. Both forces, however, were already weakened and, as had Spirit Walker had feared, the Skaven took full advantage of the fractured defence. The Verminlord had learnt from its previous defeat, and rather than send hordes of useless slave-caste chattel at the defenders, ranks of clan moulder monstrosities were loosed in successive waves upon the Elven and Dwarden defenders. Packs of brood horrors stalked the passages of Carax-Unclad, followed by slavering packs of rat ogres. Wolf rats dragged down stragglers, and everywhere swarms of giant rats consumed all. The elves and Dwarden were driven from the lower and middle levels of the mountain, and the ratmen despoiled the molten pools that were sacred to the elves, and in particular the daughters of Cain. In the uppermost halls, where light from the outside mountain was filtered into chambers through massive lenses of pure crystal, the hastily made alliance made their stand. Lord Ordinata Karathi and Spirit Walker stood beside the two peoples, bolstering the forces and directing the defence as best he could. The Verminlord had, however, anticipated all. An ominous shudder ran through the uppermost reaches of the mountain. The ingenious warpstone-driven engines of Clan Scryer had been employed to weaken the mountain's summit in order to bury both the defenders and to seal the lower levels from future incursions, thus allowing the Verminlord all the time it required to break the runes that sealed the doors of Grungni. The tremors intensified, and slowly but inexorably the mountaintop of Carax-Unclad began to fracture. As the Elven and Dwarden alliance prepared themselves for heroic but ultimately futile last stand, the entirety of the eastern side of the hold broke apart. The copper-rich earth at the mountain's peak slid away, sparking an avalanche of titanic proportions that buried the three kings and all of the external gateways into the mountain hold. Warden King Cavenheart, Lord Ordinata Spirit Walker, and High Sorceress Darkspite stood shoulder to shoulder beneath the silvered Shamon sky, as the ranks of Skaven poured out into the now completely exposed chamber. A curt nod was shared between the three commanders as the massive form of the Verminlord rose up behind the chittering horde. The greater demon loosed what passed for a smile and stalked purposely towards the three commanders across the gilded floor of the mile-wide chamber. A crack like thunder reverberated around the exposed mountain chamber as the great sky cannon fired. The Verminlord reeled backwards as a massive shell slammed into the demon's chest. The sky fleet of Barak Klad had ancient ties to the former Dwarden hold. Indeed, the sky fleet had its roots in the very Dwarden that fled the mountain generations before, and the Caradhran now soared to the aid of their earthbound kin. Alongside the sky vessels of the Caradhran rode Lord Aquilor Drakestalker and the Paladors of the Blackened Maelstrom. The vanguard chamber had been on the hunt in the wilds around the mountains since the dispossessed had arrived, and at the first hint of the Skaven's arcane machinery being deployed had sent word to their Caradhran allies that their kin and ancestral home were under threat. Now together the two forces drove into the Skaven lines like a divine wind, scattering Skaven bodies in their wake. Arcanaut companies descended on grappling lines from the Ether Endrin-born frigates and lay into the Skaven masses with skyhooks and ether-shot carbines, and volley cannons strafed the densely packed ratmen with shot and shell. Borne aloft on their own personal Ether Endrins, the Sky Wardens of Barak Klad soared above melee, spitting death from their aethermatic volley guns. Renewed by the arrival of their unlooked-for allies, the Elven and Dwarden forces rallied quickly and charged once more into the Skaven ranks, alongside the Arcanaut companies of the Caradhran. Order Serpentis Drakespawn knights careened into a pack of bewildered rat ogres alongside the Blackened Maelstrom Paladors, as the Melusai archers loosed hails of envenomed arrows into the Skaven that skulked behind the massive beasts. Deprived of the whips of their packmasters, the resolve of the rat ogres crumbled in the face of the vicious draconic mounts of the elves, and the creatures turned and fled, trampling scores of Skaven clan rats in the process. The Verminlord attempted to rise, only to be felled by the relic hammer of Lord Ordinata Spirit Walker and the ancestral blade of Warden King Cavenheart. Behind the two warriors stalked the predatory form of Shayla Darkspite. A corona of eldritch fire played about the sorceress as she approached the ensuing melee. A bladed tail lashed out from the prone demon and sent the Dwarden King reeling across the cabin floor as the creature rose to its full height before the Lord Ordinata and the elven sorceress. Far from falling back in fear as the demon had hoped, a malicious grin played across Sheila's face. Bloody sigils hung in the air before the sorceress as she formed the elements of the dismissal spell. "I know your true name, demon," she whispered menacingly. The arcane syllables rolled off the elf witch's tongue, and the verminlord howled in pain. Already weakened by the assault of the two warriors and the cannon of the Skylords, the demon could no longer contain its corporeal form. With a last ear-piercing screech, the creature dissolved into a swarm of skittering rats that scattered in every direction. The loss of their lord was the final straw for the Skaven force. What was already a withdrawal became a complete rout. The ratmen sped back towards the tunnels, pursued by the allied forces. Most of the Skaven were destroyed. Many fled, and a large number were taken captive by the daughters of Cain and dragged into the depths of the mountain, from whence the chittering screams of tortured Skaven would echo for many months. At the conclusion of the battle, however, the question of ownership of the mountain remained unsettled. Despite Spirit Walker's guidance, the Elves and Dwarden very nearly came to blows for a second time. It was the Caradhran who eventually brokered a peace between the disparate peoples. Arcanaut Admiral Baron Skyaxe approached the bickering parties in the matter-of-fact Caradhran way and, with a liberal helping of the Caradhran Code, was able to lay out a division of labour and resources that would come to be known as the Charter of the Free City of Moltenheart. Exclusive trade rights were, of course, given to the Barak-clad Skyport. Okay, so that's the next chapter. After this, we'll start looking at recent times and the Free City of Moltenheart as it is today, as well as the cult of the dismembered god and various other idiosyncrasies. Thanks for listening.